exclusive open mic series. We encourage people with disabilities to come and tell their stories and share their art. But we're open to everybody. And every time we meet, we get a good mix of folks, and there are always some pretty fun surprises. The people that put this thing together there are sort of three main partners. There's, of course, the beautiful Malvern Books, which lets us use their fabulous space, and I encourage y'all to have a look at their selection and pick up a book or two after you've gotten lots of copies of Thriving Through It. Then there is the Pen to Paper Creative Writing Contest that Susie and I run out of the Coalition of Texans with Disabilities. Pen to Paper is a disability-focused writing contest. We look for pieces of fiction, nonfiction, poetry, and comics that treat the topic of disability. We just finished our 5th year, which is totally amazing. I can't believe that we're still going strong, but we are, and that's awesome. So, yay! Yay! And then, of course, VSA Texas is our other partner in putting all of this together, represented by April Sullivan. I'm sure all of y'all know that VSA does absolutely anything and everything with the arts and disability, dance, music, animation, visual arts, radio, theater. I mean, really anything you can think of, they've got a program for it, and they are super great. So,
Yay, VSA!
So those are the groups that put together the Lion and the Pirate. And before we get started, I just want to mention, if any of you are interested in telling your own story about having a disability or your experience with disability, and you find yourself in the Dallas area from November 20th to December 20th, there is something called the Disability Visibility Project going on up there, where this group is gathering sort of an oral history of stories of people with disabilities. It's through StoryCorps, if y'all ever listen to that program on NPR. It's really exciting and fun, and Dallas is one of the few cities where they're stopping on their mobile tour. So we are trying to help them publicize a little bit about what they're doing. So if you're interested or want to know a little more, just let me know and we can talk about that. And now we're going to get to why we're all here in the first place, and that is author Joyce Tepley here to do some reading from her years in the making book, Thriving Through It, How They Do It. And I guess I'll turn it over to you if you want to say anything about, well, anything. I'll stop talking.
Laura has been so generous in her time and promoting of my work, and I just cannot thank you enough, Laura. Tweeting, Facebooking, you name it. She is a media master lady. Well, Willie Mae, what should we do? How should we start?
Well, first of all, I want to acknowledge the significance of this period. October is known nationally as the National Disability Awareness Month. And I think it's so timely that an event such as this will be held, in addition to other things that might be held around the country. So I think we're right on target.
Yeah.
And let me just quickly add that I want to thank Joyce for selecting me as one of the personalities in her book. And when I saw the book, I was at awe, and I was so gratified and pleased to know that I was listed among outstanding persons with disabilities. And so I feel very grateful. I think I'm in a good place.
You are outstanding.
Thank you.
You know, it's what I wanted. Hey, Rick. Hi, come in. My friend Rick just walked in. I'm so happy.
Welcome, Rick.
Yes. Say welcome, Rick.
Welcome, Rick.
It's an AA meeting here. When I was thinking about ordinary people doing extraordinary things and what it takes to thrive through difficult times, that's the question I wanted to answer. I just, thought, here I am, making it as best I can in this world with having had polio. And surely, nobody is without troubles. It isn't just people with disabilities we're talking about here, obvious disabilities, but anybody who's lived a life has to face some kind of adversity sometime in their lives. And what does it take to not just overcome it or to survive through it, but what does it take to really do well through that? And that's all I wanted to do, was to answer that question. And I thought the best way to do that is to interview people with long-term physical disabilities, because they have an obvious story to tell. And so I put together a group of questions and interviewed them and did the research. Wille May was one of them. She was referred to me by some other people and as a thriver. And so this is the culmination of it, 14 years work. Little skinny thing, like me. But I hope that it inspires, or that it just speaks to each of you and other people that you might know who's been through it. So let me start by telling you a story. I went to my 30th college class reunion a while back. My 50th is coming up next year, I can't believe it. And during one of the sessions, a woman came up to me, a classmate of mine, who I didn't know very well at the time. And she said, I want to tell you something that I didn't tell you before. And I hadn't had any contact with her in 30 years. So she sat down next to me. I was in my little wheelchair. And she sat next to me. And she said, reminded me, not just said, but reminded me of a time when we were in our sophomore year together. We were taking phys ed, and in order to graduate sophomore year, you had to pass a swimming test. You had to tread water for 2 minutes. Fortunately, I knew how to swim. She was in one end of the pool, I was in another. There was the phys ed teacher with her stopwatch on the side. Picture this, as in the words of Estelle Getty's on
Picture this.
Golden Girls.
Yes.
A balmy evening in Miami, Florida. My small Catholic college. I'm in one end of the pool, and I'm going like this because I can't use my legs. She's at the other end doing her thing. 2 minutes finally is finished. She said to me at the reunion, when I looked over at you and saw you treading water, I thought to myself, if she can do it, I can too. Here's the rest of the story. I was just trying to keep my head above water. But you never know, how you touch someone's life. And in fact, I have a person in here, Bob Rourke, who's a paraplegic. He told me, I don't want to be anyone's hero. I'm just living my life the best way I know how. And if someone else is inspired by that, takes that to themselves and uses it for their own good, that's up to them. So, how many of you feel that way who are disabled? Yeah. We're just living our ordinary lives, exactly. But other people think we're some kind of really special things here, heroes. And in fact, everybody's a hero in their own life. I would challenge that idea of how we are inspirations. And I challenge you also to write down your own story. You're talking, Laura, about the Oral History Project. we need to keep these stories alive. We need to be who we are in our, come in. Hi. Okay, let me just indulge a little bit and read you the introduction. Have a seat. Yeah. You're welcome to come up here.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you for coming. Okay, within a few days of the 50th anniversary of Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay's first ascent of Mount Everest, Gary Guler broke through the clouds at the highest point on Earth. How many have heard of Gary Guler? Two people. Gary Guler is from Austin here. Proudly standing on its summit with his 4 Sherpa companions. It was May 23rd, 2003. Just as the team was about to give up by being stuck at 26,000 feet due to a 100-mile-per-hour wind, the winds died down and the sun broke through. Gary and his Sherpas, with ropes and ladders, slowly climbed the last 3,035 feet on the glistening ice snow for 17 hours.
Yeah.
Many people have climbed through the treacherous conditions of the death zone, as they call it, to reach the 29,000 plus feet of Mount Everest summit since Hillary and Norgay. But this climb was unique because Gary only had one arm, and his teammates who backed up his ascent were all disabled.
Wow.
Team Everest 03 Challenge is what they call themselves. Started out in the middle of March, reaching the first base camp, and they kept climbing, acclimating to the physical and mental rigors. 5 members of the team used wheelchairs. 2 were hearing impaired. Another had a prosthetic leg. And the last 2 members had severe pain due to
Fibromyalgia.
fibromyalgia, thank you, and arthritis. I could spell it, but I couldn't pronounce it. Experiencing high altitude sickness, gastric difficulties, and sub-zero temperatures, the team trudged on. They wouldn't have been able to endure, let alone ascend, without the support of 15 Sherpas, 80 porters, 13 yak cows, and 19 able-bodied teammates. Usually only 1 in 10 who attempt the 30-mile trek make it to the first base camp. But on Team Everest, guess how many members made it? 8 members with disabilities were able to claim their place in history. The Sherpas wove special baskets to carry those members who moved themselves in wheelchairs. But some decided to drag their own paralyzed legs over the rocky terrain or stay in their ruggedly made wheelchairs to make the climb. At the top of the world, 75 days from when they began, Gary, Nima Dawa, Namgya, Pimba Tenzing, and Da Nima fell to their knees crying and gave thanks to Chomolungma, the mother goddess of the world. Staying only 20 minutes because of the time it took to descend and needing to get off the mountain before the rainy season, Gary returned to camp suffering from snow blindness. Triumphantly welcomed by his remaining teammates, he wrote in his journal that in his career as a mountaineer, he looked up at the mountains for inspiration. Being at the highest place on the earth, he could look up no further. It was hard for him to believe that he was there witnessing the most beautiful sight he ever saw. So would you say that Gary and his teammates were thrivers? The determination, detail of planning, belief in a greater purpose, and the support of each other certainly proves they were. You don't have to climb Mount Everest to be a thriver. In the next 2 sections of this book, well, I'll skip that part, the thrivers that I interviewed in this book. Following the advice of Tenzing Norgay, be great, but make others great. When I finished the interviews and started writing the book, that was the second thing I wanted to do. Not just answer that question, but to honor those who gave me their stories and their generosity to do that. Did you find your thing?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm sorry for the interruption.
So my whole idea about thriving, and then I'm gonna let Willie Mae say stuff, talk some stuff here, is that you can't do it alone. You can survive alone, but you can't thrive alone. It's done in context. And I can think of probably thousands of people in my life who have helped me along the way, who have been there with me, who are even strangers. Like yesterday, I was out in some parking lot and deploying my chair, and this lady comes along and she just parked over there somewhere. She says, "Can I help you?" I mean, I get that all the time. It's easier for me to say, "No, I got it," than to try to explain to somebody what to do. But you get that
All the time.
Yeah. So that's a stranger. So it isn't, I couldn't have, she gave me her energy there. She gave me a sweet hello and a smile, and that made it much easier for me, even though I did it myself. So stuff like that, the life is made up of hundreds of people who are with you. I get the credit for being a great person. But here's my great person, Phil, my husband. I would not be alive if it wasn't for Phil. He makes sure I get fed, for sure. And just being, my husband. So, Willie Mae, I want to know what your life is. Do you want to read your little section, or do you want to talk about your life since?
Well, let me pivot on what you just said, and then I'll read
Okay.
my portion. Inevitably, we as individuals cannot survive without the support, the encouragement, and direct assistance from others. Like Joyce, I pride myself in being self-sufficient, independent, strong Black woman, But there are times that I need help. And because I am the way I am, I don't always accept it easily. I don't admit that I need help. I prefer to struggle first before I actually accept help. For example, I went to a gala last night. How many of you heard of San Antonio Independent Living Services? That's one of the independent living centers around the state of Texas. Was SAILS, as we know it, the acronym SAILS, was having its, I think, 33rd annual gathering. And I was going to be in attendance. But before going in to join others at the designated table, I just wanted to make sure that my jewelry was in place. My cheap jewelry. I don't want to go anywhere unless the jewelry is in place. So I was able to put on my earrings rather easily, but it was that necklace that I had chosen to wear. And because I have cerebral palsy, I have trouble with fine motor coordination. And recently I am a cancer survivor now, thank God. I have trouble with peripheral neuropathy. So I had trouble saying that. So I get a lot of numbness in my fingers, and I have trouble now, in addition to the challenge I had with cerebral palsy, I have trouble now with the residual effects of my treatment, trying to grasp small things. But I was determined to put on that necklace. So there I was in the ladies' room. You know how we sort of retired to the ladies' room to get it all together, the last minute kind of thing? Well, that's what I was doing. And I wanted to get the necklace on, and I tried, and I tried, and I tried. So a lady, total stranger, she saw me sitting there when she went in. And lo and behold, I was still sitting in the same spot, dealing with the same thing when she came out. And when she saw that, she immediately asked, "Would you like me to help?" Because, she was obvious I needed help. But she was coming out of the compartment. And I was going to let her help me, but not before she washed her hands. So when she offered to help, I said, no. I didn't want her to touch me, or more or less my jewelry. I said, no, not until you wash your hands. I mean, I'm just funny like that. You have to wash your hands when you come out of the ladies' room. That's how I feel. And I think she took offense. But she was only wanting to help. Immediately, she just wanted to help. She forgot about the fact she needed to wash her hands. She saw that I had a need. So she wanted to help. And I said, no, not until you wash your hands. So then she said, oh yeah, I'm sorry. She apologized and washed her hands. And I think I hurt her feelings, and she left. That wasn't my intention. I was going to let her help me, but her hands had to be clean. Well, what I did was I struggled myself. I realized I couldn't put the necklace on from the back, so I decided, it's more than one way to skin the cat. So I turned it around so I could look at it, and I struggled that way. Eventually, I was able to get it on, but it wasn't easy. And if only I had accepted the help when it was offered, it would have been a lot easier. And I would have left the ladies' room a bit sooner. Those two rascals over there, they're hiding. I'm mentioning them because they're my daughters. Paulette, would you stand, please?
Yay, Paula.
That's Paulette Day. And then there's Christine. Where are you hiding, Christine? There she is. That's my youngest. Well, I'm going to tell you the truth. As they were growing up, persons would think privately. Public thought that they were my helpers. Because the assumption was, this is a person with an obvious disability. I wasn't supposed to have children. I mean, that was the assumption. Matter of fact, the reason I know why some persons were thinking what they were thinking, because I would take the children to church. I was able to drive there. I'm not able to drive anymore. But I would drive the children to church. And I would try to do it consistently. Now, it wasn't easy. Like many parents, trying to tug and force and justify and cajole, I finally got them out of the door and into the car. And I would go to church, and the parishioners would see them at Mass on a regular basis. Well, one day, I don't remember why I didn't bring them that day, but I didn't have them with me. And there I appeared alone. Well, after church, one of the parishioners approached me and asked, where are your helpers? That's when I knew what they were thinking. Because she said what she thought. She said, where are your helpers today? And I started looking around. I said, who? What do you mean? She said, those little girls that you would bring to church. I said, those two girls? No, they aren't my helpers. Those are my daughters. You know? But in actuality, they were my helpers, in quotes. But they were really first my daughters. And they were my responsibilities to mold, to shape, to influence, to guide. But this idea of interrelationship, they are my helpers, okay? Let me read a little bit from the book. What page am I on?
Okay. You are on page 23, and this is the new version.
Okay, thank you.
This is Willie's story, Willie Mae's story.
Okay, at any time, girls, why don't you come over here so you can hear about your mother?
Mom, we can hear about you.
I think they're my daughters. Yeah. Willie Mae Clay, advocate for persons with disabilities. At the time that Joyce interviewed me, I was 53.
Several years ago.
You didn't have to cajole that.
No. And I have cerebral palsy. Prematurely born in the first set of 3 sets of twins. My mom was a strong black woman. 3 sets of twins. I was the first set.
Wow.
Willie Mae survived, thank God. Her twin sibling did not. I had a brother. However, she was left with the effects of cerebral palsy, spasticity, and the inability to walk well. Her father was a longshoreman in Baltimore, Maryland, and her mother was a homemaker. Willie Mae observed that they struggled economically. In other words, we were poor, but had good values. They were homebodies, my parents were. But when they went out, they included her along with her 3 brothers and 3 sisters, exposing her to different experiences. And as I've said to my daughters, I consider my parents to be my very first advocates. Willie Mae remembered her father putting her on his back and carrying her to play in a park, and her mother dressing her in cute outfits. She attributed her advocacy on behalf of persons with disabilities to her father, who grew up under the Jim Crow discrimination in South Carolina and was bothered by it. Her parents were both supportive of the civil rights movement, instilling in her the idea, if you want things rectified, you have to fight for them. Winters were hard in Baltimore, but her mother put her in a wagon and made sure she got to school every day. There were no accommodations for her disability until the 6th grade, when they were able to find a school for children with disabilities, because her parents believed she was gifted and blessed. She was the first in her family to go to college. At 17, her father died, and her mother remarried. She remarried a man who was stricter than her father was. The change was difficult, and Willie Mae moved out of the house. She moved in with a neighbor who had a daughter, and they were a loving surrogate family. During her third year of college, she met her husband and soon had a child, Paulette. She was inexperienced. Oh boy, was I inexperienced. Her husband was in the military, and she began traveling with him. During her military lifestyle, she learned to drive, complete her undergraduate degree in education, and taught school in both California and Germany. While in Germany, they had another daughter, Christine. In 1977, they moved to San Antonio, where she got a master's degree, and that was my second master's degree, because I received my first master's degree in Coppin University in 1977 in Baltimore. After I moved to San Antonio, I received my second master's degree in public administration. The first master's degree was rehabilitation, concentration, master's in education. And it was here in San Antonio where I began to advocate for persons with disabilities. Let me tell you how I got to that. Not because I moved here and all of a sudden I wanted to advocate. Let me tell you a little brief story. Picture it. While I was in Germany and teaching school, there was and it was my task to develop in this confined classroom individualized instruction. It became very, very apparent to me at the time that this person was having difficulty with learning. It was also very clear to me that this person was also having trouble coping with the difficulty of learning. And she was exhibiting poor behavior. Well, those were messages to me. And what I did for this individual, this was the first person I encountered with a disability. And it was that person in Bad Kreuznach, Germany, that inspired me and made me sensitive to the fact that there are people out there with special needs. Here I had special needs all my life, but I didn't perceive myself as a person with, quote, a special need. I saw myself as Willie Mae, who was entitled to any opportunity that anyone else had, because that was the way I was reared among my other siblings. But when I encountered that person in Germany, I saw how she was alienated. I saw how she was sort of, quote, picked on. And I saw how she was embarrassed about her level of functioning. And not only did my heart go out to her, but I was challenged to open her world. Opened her world to learning. And as a result, she passed. She passed. But I left Bad Kreuznach, Germany, determined to do something about that population out there that was challenged, that population that was alienated. It was that person that I encountered in Germany. So when I came back to the States, when I came back, I told my husband, I said, I'm going back to school. I said, I'm going back. And I want to, he said, you're going back? What do you mean? I'm going to be traveling with him. But I sacrificed. I wanted to find a place where I could go to school and get some sort of specialized training in working with persons with disabilities. So I did. I left and I went back to Baltimore and I found a grant. My husband joined me later, but that's where I got my first master's in education with concentration on rehabilitation counseling. So when I came to San Antonio, I was determined to continue what I started. And it was here that I developed my advocacy skills at the Independent Living Center called SAILS. My husband and I separated after we were here for a while. This San Antonio, Texas was his place, the place where he was born and reared. Baltimore was where I was born and reared. But you know, what they did for me in the military, they taught me to be independent. Because Clay would be called out to the field and he would go here, he would go there, he was assigned here. And some of the assignments were not accompanied. And so I was left with the girls. Can you believe they survived it? And it was because of his lifestyle. I was forced to learn to be my own woman. So when I got here and things got sort of rugged, I was a long way from home. Clay and I mutually agreed to separate. And what I loved about Leroy was that we respected each other. We respected each other. I supported him in his military endeavors, and he always supported what I wanted to do in terms of educational growth. He was always there for me. So when we decided to separate, I was taking a risk. I didn't know how I was going to make it here. I had a job. I didn't know how I was going to make it here. But I know that I had faith in God. And I knew that my husband was a loving father. And I knew that he would be there for the girls. So I took a risk and I separated. I stayed here. And he went back off to Germany. He had another tour, okay? We separated in 1984 at the time that he retired. And after he retired from the military, he went his way and I went mine. We contemplated a divorce. We really did. But being a Catholic, I was torn with that. Getting a divorce, hey, am I supposed to do that? So Leroy and I decided to just remain separated. And I must say that the decision I made to become a single parent was not an easy one. But I knew I was stepping out on faith. And it was during our separation that I relied a great deal on others, my neighbors, my friends, my relatives. And Clay would visit periodically and make sure he was there for the girls. But I must say that it was during that time that I really found out what my inner self was all about. I was able to pull from inner self my strength and still make it. And I was cognizant of the fact that I couldn't make it without all the other stakeholders.
So we have two things that you've said so far, Renee,
Yes.
that I emphasize in the book. And guess what those are? A personality trait she mentioned twice that she has. Anybody who's awake right now? What would you guess the main personality trait is of someone who really thrives through difficult times? Anybody?
Obsessive compulsiveness.
You got that?
How did you identify it?
Oh,
She mentioned twice self-determination. She was determined, right? Persevering and
Oh,
determined.
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the main things I heard from every single thriver that I interviewed. And the second thing you said was the support, right?
Yes, undoubtedly, undoubtedly, yes.
So, can you identify with some of what Billy Mae was talking about in her life story? What is it, Juan, that you identify with?
Oh, I'm the willingness you have to survive, and everything you said I went to. I came from my background was I was a family of 10 kids.
Oh, my God.
10, oh my goodness.
And very Mexican family. My brother and sister gave me like there was no disability at all. I was like everybody else.
Included and treated like.
Everybody else, I was the baby of the family,
Oh, were you?
so I was spoiled.
Spoiled.
People know me. People agree with me,
So your wife Susie spoils you now.
but everything you said,
Right.
I would do it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't go to college, but I moved from California to here,
Okay.
all by myself.
All by yourself?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
So you mean you traveled in your wheelchair?
Well, I had a friend join me, but
Oh, you okay?
I'm teasing.
You made that move.
I made that move at 19.
19.
So,
100 years ago?
it feels like 100 years ago, but I'm surviving all by myself.
All right.
Well, now by myself.
The other half.
Now by myself, but it was rough.
Yeah.
Yes.
At first to go from a big family to only me.
Uh-huh.
And I had trouble. What do I do? What if I fall and nobody find me? And it was a rough
Yes.
year and a half. But to the moment after 6 months,
All right.
I was fine ever since.
All right.
Got a job. But I is in unique situation because I was kind of the opposite of one, and my mom did everything for me when I was growing up. So I didn't know quite what I could do and what I couldn't do. So when I got into college, that was a real rough lesson to learn, and I had to go through an independent learning center, like what you were talking about, for a year, and they helped me to realize what I could do, what I couldn't do, and how to live on my own. And so when he came from California, well, we had met when we were 9 and 10
Oh, is that right?
in California.
Uh-huh.
And my parents moved here when I was 17. So I left him behind for 4 years. And 4 years later, I came in. Visit and love autism. I came in and went to that, but I didn't know how hard it was, but yeah, it's like we grew up together.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to say is, I took what I was taught in that independent living center, and I taught him. So we complemented each other.
Wonderful.
like it, yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic.
So is this a marriage made in or somewhere more down to earth?
Yeah, it is, but is really
Well,
what she can do, I can do.
uh-huh.
That's what it's
What
about.
I can do, she does.
Wonderful.
So we help each other do other things.
Thank you for letting us know that. And anyone who knows them, right, Laura? Says they're telling the truth. How are we doing on time?
We're good. It's just about 8 o'clock.
Oh,
We
okay.
have the space until 9.
I
But
think,
we do have some other performers. If you guys would like a break, want to do a little musical interlude.
that sounds good.
Yeah, I felt like anybody else that wanted to share their own story about the time of year.
Okay.
So yeah, so you make that call.
Okay. Well, you want to buy the book? I mean, the obvious in my commercial here. We have some copies of the book available for me to sign them if you would like them. And Shaniqua, here in the front row, reminded me that I need to get on the stick and make some audio copies of them and get it connected into the talking books here in Texas. So that was my plan when I get home. And I'm thinking about doing a podcast and having some voices on there like Willie Mae. Who does podcasting in here? Anybody listens to podcasts? Nobody?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I do.
You do? Oh, okay. What?
I said, I listen to podcasts, I don't know how to do one.
Yeah.
But
Well, I understand
listen to one.
it's pretty easy, you just have to, talk into a microphone. What, excuse me, what is your name? I'm Joyce.
I'm Tanya.
Tanya, what company do you subscribe to in your podcasting? Stitcher Radio or one of those?
I guess just whatever I find on the internet.
Oh, okay.
Just different radio stations have different podcasts.
Right. Well, anyway, podcasting is the thing now. Besides Twitter and Pinterest and Facebook, and I think I'm going nuts with all these social media sites. I'm sitting there with my little cell phone, and, oh, guess who tweeted? Phil was going, are they a bunch of twits?
Joyce, let them know how many different characters you have.
Yes, there's 20 people that I interviewed for the book, and 19 more from Willie Mae, with all different walks of life. People who grew up in dire, poor circumstances and didn't have any education, to people who have PhDs and are rich. Not necessarily in that order, but, so I wanted to get a good cross-section of folks because, it's a big world out there. So I'm planning to do more interviews, and particularly re-interviewing some people that are in the book and find out what they're doing now, 10, 14, 15 years later. We're all a little bit older.
Oh, yeah.
So 2 of the people I'm afraid are dead, so I can't interview them by now. But let me just conclude then with one last word from Willie Mae. And I think there was something I wanted to say here. Oh, yeah, okay, go ahead. Want to say one last?
Well, first of all, I want to thank all of you for coming tonight and demonstrating your interest in the project. It was really an honor for me to be part of the project, and I'm hoping that the book will serve as means of inspiration and that of enlightenment and that of education to many. And I'm hoping that Joyce is able to sell several copies Although I'm included in the book, I will be buying at least 2 copies. One each for my daughters, because, you know, what's in the book and what they lived with, 2 different things. They decided not to talk tonight, but I'm glad that they came. They decided to transport their mother tonight. So I thank my daughters. And then I'd like to thank Joyce for thinking of me and including me as part of the publication. And last but not least, I want to thank God for giving me the guidance and letting me stay here for a purpose. And I want you to know that it wasn't until I became an adult, came here in this great state of Texas, did I realize what my purpose was all about. And that was to advocate and to help persons with disabilities or anyone who is existing on the fringes of society. I feel that that's my purpose. It's my job to give back what I've been given. Thank you very much.